Welcome to Hex. I'm Barry, the co-founder and CEO, and I am so excited to tell you about what our team has been up to the last few months. Every day, millions of people make decisions that could be better informed by data. In fact, there's a boundless demand for insight. But analytics workflows can be really clunky. Teams have to jump around between tools. Collaboration is really painful, and sharing is often done via a spreadsheet or screenshot. We had felt this pain firsthand and started Hex because we wanted something better. Our team has been laser focused on building powerful, intuitive tools for data science and analytics. And now Hex is being used by thousands of people all over the world, including the teams at great companies like Brex, Notion, and Recursion. Every day it helps them discover new insights, work together, and make better decisions. And today, we're going to show you a little bit about what's next for our product. We've made big improvements to every part of Hex, from visualization to compute. Altogether, these are a huge step forward for data workflows and deserve a whole new version number. Hex 3.0 includes a next generation of our AI-powered magic features with new tools for governance and guidance. An all-new version of our app builder with more flexibility to create beautiful, interactive data experiences. And big upgrades to our compute engine that make your projects faster while unlocking new levels of scale. Let's start by talking about AI. There's a lot of excitement about recent advancements with large language models, and for good reason. It's incredible technology, and it's going to change the way we all work. But there's also a lot of misunderstanding and concern. In the data world, some believe that we're going to replace all the human data teams with a bunch of AI analyst chatbots. At Hex, we firmly reject this. In fact, we think this revolution is going to make data teams more relevant than ever. We believe that AI can help humans focus on the fun, creative parts of what they do, and then let the computer handle the rest. That's why we're focused on building powerful AI tools that augment, not replace, human data teams. And today, with Hex 3.0, we're introducing some amazing new features that make this a reality. To tell you more, here's Brian from our AI team.
Earlier this year, we introduced Hex Magic, a powerful set of AI assistance features to accelerate data work, to generate queries, edit code, or debug errors. We built these directly into Hex's powerful data workspace, making it easy for users to integrate AI into their workflows. For example, I can already use Magic Generate to write a complex SQL query that buckets users into cohorts. I can then move to a Python cell and use Magic to look for additional clusters to validate these cohorts. This all works seamlessly with existing Hex workflows. I can easily go back and forth between editing via a UI and natural language. Now, using AI for data doesn't require me to go to some separate tool. Every day, thousands of users are already using these tools to work faster and with greater confidence. At WorkRise, they estimate that using Magic AI to fix and adjust SQL queries shaves hours off their analytical workflows. And at Planet Scale, Magic solved one of the hardest problems in data science, writing accurate regex on the first try. Today, we're taking this further to one of the most important parts of data work, visualization, with the introduction of Magic Charts. Magic Charts make it effortless to build and edit beautiful visualizations, just with natural language. Hex's chart cells already let anyone build polished, interactive visualizations. They support a wide range of chart types and can handle massive data scale. Magic Charts now make viz work as simple as just asking for what you want. Okay, here, I'm pulling some data about recent web traffic from our Snowflake warehouse. I want to make a nice visual here that breaks down my traffic by source. I'll bring this data into a new chart cell. And instead of diving into the configuration to update this from the default viz, I'm just going to ask for the chart that I want in plain English. Stacked columns of source showing total number of sessions and colored by device type. After a few seconds, I get exactly the chart that I wanted. You can use this for any kind of chart update, big or small. Let's resort this to better understand the long tail of sources. Or completely rebuild the chart to show source percentages over time. It feels completely natural to build visuals like this, and can be way more convenient than doing it by hand. Even as an expert Hex user, I've been really enjoying the ability to batch visual updates with Magic Charts. Instead of clicking 10 different buttons and navigating a bunch of dropdowns, I can say, okay, change this to a horizontal bar chart and color by user device type. Oh, and move the legend down to the bottom. I can see the changes applied to the interface in real time, so it's simple for me to jump in and tweak this further by hand. If I want to see a previous iteration, everything is recorded so I can step back and forth through all my requests. Okay, so now Hex's built-in AI can help write SQL and Python and build visualizations. But what if we took that even further? What about helping me with a whole analysis? The Hex Editor UI is built around the notebook format. Notebooks are awesome for deep dive data work because they allow me to weave logic, visualization, and narrative together in one place. It's a great way to explain and show my work, especially when sharing or collaborating with others. As it turns out, this also makes notebooks great for working with AI. Today, we're introducing a new feature that generates chains of cells in your notebook, integrating queries, visualization, and explanation. We're calling this Magic Analysis. Magic Analysis lets you use a text prompt to kickstart new analytical paths. Just like Hex's other magic tools, all you have to do is ask. Let me show you. Let's say our team's been experimenting with some new marketing channels, and it's time for us to take a look at how they've been performing. So I'm here in a new Hex project. It's empty, and I can start by adding some new cells myself. But I can also see I have this new prompt bar. I'll get started by just asking the question, how are our marketing channels performing over the past 3 months? And boom, just like that, Magic Analysis is already generating this project for me. It starts with a plan, letting me know what it's going to do, which tables it thinks it'll need, and then it gets right to it. The best part is that just like if I was writing this out myself, Hex is interspersing text, code, and visualizations, breaking things up into easy to understand cells that I can actually follow along with. All right, this looks like what I wanted. Now I'm interested in seeing this broken out by segment too. I'll just ask another question. And Magic Analysis will pick right back up, operating with all the context from the other work in the project. I can accept, reject, or tweak and rerun this AI-generated work, or even use Magic to edit individual components for me. Let's group this chart by campaign instead of channel. These AI features are really powerful, but the real magic is how deeply we've integrated them into the already incredibly powerful Hex workspace. It lets me use text-based prompts just like I would in a chat UI, but it's right here, where I'm already doing my work, and part of Hex's secure platform. No more tabbing back and forth or copying and pasting. I can grab any part of this project and edit it by hand, rerun it, or use it as a jumping off point for further manual or AI-enabled work. For example, I can use this generated chart to visually filter down the data, and then ask a follow-up question to add some more color to the results. Okay, this project looks great, and I'm already pretty close to a complete finished analysis. I'm gonna publish this so I can share it with other folks on my team, and done. Users of this app can see live updating data, leave comments, or even jump off from this app into their own AI-assisted exploration. That's the magic of Magic Analysis. In just a few minutes, I took an ad hoc data question and turned around a beautiful report that's explainable and reproducible. This feels amazing, but it's also really important that AI results are accurate and trustworthy. For more on that, here's Olivia.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and I'm an engineer on our AI team. Trust has always been a big focus of ours at Hex. Nothing else matters if customer data isn't secure. From SOC 2 to HIPAA to regular penetration tests, we're always making improvements to the security of our platform. It's also important we make sure teams have control over their data. Hex gives you powerful options like OAuth and directory sync for permissions on projects and data sources, which helps prevent accidental data exposure. We're extending this focus on trust to our work with AI too. Magic AI features all work via in-context learning, meaning we aren't training any AI models on customer data, so there's zero risk your code or data can leak into another organization. Our model partners are also prohibited from using prompts for training and have a zero retention policy for prompt information. This means Hex lets you integrate AI into your work without worrying about it being integrated into someone else's work. AI needs to not only be secure, but accurate too. There are many examples of AI systems giving impressive seeming, but ultimately misleading answers. Here's a real example of an AI-generated prompt and the resulting query. It might look fine, but it's actually querying the wrong thing. It's referencing a raw Stripe customers table to calculate revenue, when there's another table, dim customers, that should be used instead. These kinds of errors are really easy to make when working with AI. It turns out that large language models are just like humans. They need context to make good decisions. The more we can tell the model about the tables and columns in our data warehouse, the more accurately it can write queries. So in Hex 3.0, we've put a big focus on providing useful context to the model. This is done in a few ways. First, because AI features are built right into your project, they can leverage the existing code and data to provide context and background to AI responses. We can tell the model, for example, the tables you're querying or the packages you've imported, so it can reason about what's next step will be most helpful. Next, we can leverage metadata from other parts of your data stack. First, of course, is dbt. Thousands of teams use dbt to transform data in their warehouses. And with dbt's docs feature, it's also a great place to capture key metadata about your data models. Hex is already integrated closely with dbt. We display this information right in the query editor. And now, it's useful for AI too. Information from dbt docs is automatically pulled into Hex and used to provide context to the AI model. For example, here's a table from our warehouse with vague column names. As part of our existing dbt workflow, we can add some descriptions to a couple key fields. All I have to do is merge a PR, and Hex will automatically pick it up via the dbt Cloud API. We can also pull this information directly from your data warehouse. If you have tables or column descriptions from Snowflake, BigQuery, or Redshift, they automatically will get pulled in as well. All of this metadata gets integrated directly into Hex's data model and then is turned into embeddings. These are stored in high-performance vector databases. We're running in our secure environment and isn't held by any third party. When you generate a new query in Hex, Magic quickly hits that vector store for semantically relevant information and includes it in the model prompt. There's a lot more complexity in each of these steps, but together it goes a long way to ensuring accuracy and relevant responses. So that all happens automatically. But we've also built tools to help teams actively customize and fine-tune the behavior of Magic. Hex 3.0 includes a brand new data manager. The data manager lets you view and edit information about schemas, tables, and columns that is included as additional context for the AI models. Here, Hex is displaying all the metadata we've already pulled in from dbt and data warehouses. It's easy to add more information about tables or update column descriptions to make them specific and useful. You can also exclude or prioritize specific assets from the data manager. It just takes a few clicks to remove an entire staging schema from scope, or exclude an MRR table that shouldn't be used and prioritize the right one that should be. The data manager also lets you provide more nuanced guidance, say updating a field description to help the model understand exactly the right way to query it. This information is great for AI, but also helpful for humans too. We surface all of this in the Hex Editor UI, alongside metadata from other systems. This lets you dial the behavior of Magic to be just right for your team. A little work can have a tremendous impact on the quality of AI results. Let's go back to that example from earlier. We provided a prompt and got back a plausible but wrong answer. After going through and integrating the extra metadata into Hex, we're seeing a perfect response. Add a magic chart, and we're off to the races, better understanding what's going on with our customer base. We think you're gonna love the new AI features in Hex. Magic Charts lets you create beautiful visualizations with just natural language. Magic Analysis helps you get started answering data questions even faster. And our metadata engine and data manager help the AI generate better responses. These features are in a private beta today and will be arriving in a Hex workspace near you soon. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Izzy to catch up on the latest upgrades to our core workspace experience.
So you just saw how Hex makes it faster than ever to ask and answer questions of your company's data. Analysts get to spend less time on the boring stuff and more time on the fun, creative parts of data work. The next step is sharing that work with others. And too often today, teams without Hex wind up jumping between tools to do this. Maybe you run a query in a SQL IDE and then pull that data into a notebook for more processing, then export that as a CSV to seed it into a model for a dashboard, then screenshot a chart from that dashboard and copy and paste it into a Google Doc, then export that doc as a PDF and fire that off via email. And when a stakeholder wants to change just a little thing, you're back to square one and the entire process repeats. To quote a recent Hex convert, this workflow was just slow for the team. So everyone wasn't being and it was just insane. In other words, it's not great. And Hex already solves this in many ways. Our users love how they can take a question, explore it a few different ways and dig up an answer, and then actually share that information out, all from the same tool, all really fast. Hex 3.0 includes a bunch of new features that make these sharing workflows even easier and more powerful. Let's jump into Hex. Before I show you anything specific, you might have noticed we've made some improvements to the overall UI. Hex has a fresh coat of paint. Our team has redesigned the entire core workspace UI with an eye towards simplicity and usability. You'll find a cleaner UX with some new styles and lots of little surprises. We've moved commonly used buttons to right where they should be and tucked some less used stuff safely away. I've been using this new version of Hex for a few weeks now, and even in complex projects like this, it doesn't feel busy or constrained. It might take you a few minutes to get used to these changes, but I guarantee you will love it. Now, let's look at what I'm actually doing in this project. This is a customer 360 I've been working on. I'm pulling some data in from our Snowflake warehouse, reshaping it a little bit across this chain of SQL queries, and visualizing some key info about an account. I'm using input parameters to make this SQL query dynamic, so my customer success team can get exactly what they want. It even includes a little churn risk model built in Python, right here from the same interface on the same data. Now, I want to turn this into an interactive experience I can share with others. Hex makes this simple with an integrated app builder. Data apps in Hex are easy to build and can be anything from a simple report with some narrative to a complex app with read and write capabilities. In this case, I want to turn this into a nice interactive dashboard, and I'll jump over to the Layout tab to get started designing my app. So I see Hex has actually auto-generated a pretty nice looking report for me in the Layout tab of this project. I can easily drag and drop other elements from the notebook in here, choosing to hide entire cells, show just the code backing this one for explanatory purposes, and resize them all to be just right. For Hex 3.0, we completely rebuilt the layout engine powering this drag and drop for more intuitive snapping, sizing, and movement. When I resize this element, I get a helpful guide that shows me when I'm matching the size of other charts, and I can snap it to these breakpoints that appear at a higher, more helpful resolution. In fact, this new app builder is a complete editing experience in its own right. You don't need to tab back and forth between the notebook and the layout to edit a project. I'll add some explanatory text over here, and maybe I'll even add a new query and then turn it into a chart. Now, Every kind of cell is editable from the app view, so you can build entire projects from this view. You're gonna love this for everything from making a simple change to an already published app to scaffolding out entirely new, complex apps. Okay, there's quite a bit going on in this project, so I'm going to reorganize it into tabs. I'll quickly add a new tab for this MRR section and move some of my elements over there to tidy this up. Much better. You can add as many tabs as you'd like, creating appendices, multi-view apps, cover pages, and more. And you can even add elements to multiple tabs, which is really great for things like input parameters. You can put the same dropdown on every tab in your app, and a user's selection will sync across them all for easy, seamless interactivity. And speaking of interactivity, I want to make this app even more interactive. Hex already supports filtering workflows via input parameters, which lets you customize your logic with a library of dropdowns, sliders, date pickers, and more. And visual filtering already turns any of these charts into an interactive filter, letting editors configure cross-filtering and other powerful interaction flows. Hex 3.0 includes huge improvements to filtering workflows. It's easier than ever for editors to configure interactivity for end users with shared filters. Shared filters let you tie multiple app elements to one globally accessible filter, so users can explore with editor-defined guardrails. These are super easy to configure. I'll select a few elements and click this button to add a new filter. These two data frames share an x-axis, so Hex automatically maps them together in the filter correctly. I didn't have to go in and configure anything manually. That was easy. Now, I have a globally accessible filter that controls multiple elements on this app, even across tabs. Let's publish this app so we can see it in action. Oh, I didn't see there. I'm just exploring this Hex app. These filters feel great. I can find all the specific slices of data I need here without having to go back to the data team and ask them for help rebuilding reports. But wait, this app has a filter for customer segment, but what I really want now is to look at a specific time range. Am I gonna need to make that long loop back to the data team after all? Nope. We took the algorithm that automatically maps filters for shared filters and made that accessible to end users of apps too. Now, if you make a visual selection in a published app, you're prompted to filter similar elements. Accept, and now the entire report is perfectly cross-filtered. Hex automatically identified elements with similar axes and columns and mapped them accordingly. I love how these filters just work. No one has to configure them, no one has to plan ahead, but they still save end users and data teams so much time. But should users really be limited to just filtering? We've added one more really powerful feature to apps: Explore. I can take any chart or table from this app and explore into the underlying data, completely changing the configuration as I go. I can filter this down, view a different grouping of data, slice it however I want, even drill down into the unaggregated data points that make this up. And if something's piqued my interest, I can take that and use it as a jumping off point for a totally new exploration in an entirely new Hex project. Bottom line, every chart and table in a published Hex app is now an interactive, drillable, filterable, completely explorable jumping off point for end users to answer their own questions. Okay, so it's easier than ever to take projects and turn them into beautiful, shareable apps that anyone can use, with way more interactive depth than before. Customers are already using these new features to build everything from flexible data science front ends to company-wide dashboards. The last thing we want to talk about today is our compute foundation, how we've rebuilt the entire backend of Hex to be more performant, scalable, and intuitive. Here's Caitlin, our co-founder and CTO, to explain.
data notebooks have been critical for analytics and ML workflows for over a decade. They're great for iterative exploratory work because you can run projects as individual cells. You can see the code input, the resulting output, and run them together in chunks as you develop your project. Behind the scenes, these have historically been executed via a kernel, an in-memory process that manages state and storage. But this traditional model comes with some big problems. First, traditional notebooks let you run cells in any order, which causes some serious issues. It can be hard to interpret or reason about what's going on in a notebook because you can never be sure what state any variable is in. I can even get a different answer from run to run. This makes it really hard to reproduce work. It's also a big hit on performance, since you wind up having to rerun everything just to get the state back in sync. With Hex 2.0, we fixed this state problem by introducing a powerful reactive graph model for execution. Hex infers the relationships between cells as you're working and automatically reruns downstream dependencies to make sure that the state is always up to date. This has 3 big advantages. First, it helps make projects more interpretable. A quick look at the DAG can help me understand all of the relationships and the dependencies in my project. Second, it makes data work more reproducible. Projects re-execute the same way every single time, and I never get different results. Finally, it makes them more performant. Only dependent downstream logic is ever re-triggered as a rerun, meaning I save a ton of compute time. This alone was a massive step forward for data science workflows. But these cells are still executing in a single-threaded kernel, meaning they can only run one at a time. You may not notice this for certain projects, but you will definitely notice when you have a project with a bunch of SQL cells all hitting a data warehouse. In the old model, these would each have to run one at a time in serial, waiting for each other, even though they don't depend on each other at all. Well, with Hex 3.0, we're fixing that too. Now, most types of cells can run completely in parallel. In the case of this project, these chunky warehouse queries will all run simultaneously, and then they'll trigger the downstream logic. This can massively accelerate project performance, especially for interactive apps and dashboards. We've accomplished this by building on 2 foundational parts of Hex. First, the reactive graph, which lets us determine which cells must be run sequentially and which ones can be safely run at the same time. It can even let us determine which cells don't need to run at all, like leftover scratch work. It also builds on our powerful and flexible data architecture, which already powers some of our caching and data processing outside of the in-memory kernel. But now we've extended this architecture to include most of the cell types in Hex. Let's take a complex project and see just how much of a difference this can make. We'll run this at the same time, with parallel execution and without, highlighting the DAG so you can see how they're both running. After a few seconds, our parallel version has already completed most of its simultaneous queries and is chugging down the main branch. And it's completely done before even those few initial queries of the old version have finished running. Depending on the structure of your project, this can speed things up by orders of magnitude. You'll see this working in SQL cells starting today, and we'll be expanding support to many more cell types coming very soon. So we've just shown that by executing cells in parallel, projects can run way faster while still avoiding tricky state issues. But we're also taking on the other big limitation of traditional notebooks: data scale. That's right, it's time to talk about big data. Most data warehouses allow teams to store and access massive data scale. But the traditional notebook model is memory bound. It can only fit so much data, which means we can't actually operate on or access the full data scale we have available to us. Hex can already push down SQL workloads to data warehouses with a feature we call query mode. It avoids pulling data into Hex's memory and instead relies on the scalability of modern data warehouses. This has been a huge unlock for teams used to working within kernel memory limits. Suddenly, they can actually use and analyze their data without running out of memory or waiting minutes for large result sets to stream. You can finally run select star without fear. But Pushdown only extended to SQL, until now. Now we're bringing that same power to your Python-based data science workloads. Hex 3.0 supports native data frame pushdown. This means you can run massive Python data workflows and ML pipelines in Hex using the leading cloud data infrastructure solutions as seamlessly as if they were local data frames. We have 3 great partners for this, and I'm going to use all 3 to show you some real examples of how this works. Let's start with Snowflake. We started by building integrated authentication that seamlessly piggybacks on your existing warehouse connections. Moving to a pushdown workflow is as easy as changing the result type to Snowpark. There's nothing additional to configure, no credentials to handle, or anything to store in environment variables. Okay, here's a query hitting Snowflake. The dataset I'm querying is massive, hundreds of millions of rows. But because this is being returned as a Snowpark data frame, the results never come back into Hex's memory, and I'm able to push further compute down to Snowflake. And because Hex handles these data frames natively, I can then query this Snowpark data frame using SQL, just like I would for any other data frame in Hex. But everything is still being pushed down all the way into Snowflake, so this runs fast even on hundreds of millions of rows. Let's look at another example, this time using Google's BigQuery data frames. Here, I'm running a BigQuery data frame operation using this pandas-like syntax to pull down a data set. Again, because Hex's compute engine treats this like a native data frame, I can use it downstream in other cells. For example, it's easy for me to explore this visually in a chart cell. And at no point in this process does Hex need to collect the complete result set. If I change the aggregations on this chart, that operation will be pushed all the way down into BigQuery, and it'll quickly return just the subset of data that is needed for the visualization. This feels completely native and is just as seamless as working with an in-memory data frame. And it works great with Spark too. It's easy to connect hosted solutions like Databricks, Google Serverless Spark, or a variety of other Spark environments. With this new native data frame pushdown, we're bringing all of the power of Hex, a polyglot interface, chained SQL, fast and beautiful visualizations to the kinds of data science workloads that need to be run at massively distributed scale.
We couldn't be more excited about everything in Hex 3.0. Our new Magic AI features accelerate data workflows. The new app builder makes sharing beautiful, interactive data experiences super easy. And our new compute engine unlocks new levels of performance and scale. But amongst all this big new stuff, we've also put some love into the little things. Our team has fixed a ton of paper cuts and made some really great quality of life fixes.
So the next time you create a scheduled run on an unpublished project,
or switch between your notebook and the app builder without losing your spot,
or copy the column names out of a display table,
or any of the dozens more of these little things that we've fixed up.
I hope you'll be pleasantly surprised and feel like we built something just for you. All right, thanks for tuning in, and we can't wait to see what you do with Hex 3.0.